Almost there. Chapter 17, Naveen. Naveen paced the length of the porch, counting his steps as he traveled from one end to the other. It spanned the entire front of the cafe where he was set to meet a representative of Dugas Candy Company, and if the man didn't show up soon, Naveen feared he would wear a trench into the wooden planks. Setting up the meeting on such short notice had taken a bit of finessing, but if there was one thing Naveen was good at, finessing was it. Now, he had to parlay that skill into convincing the area's largest candy company to partner with LaBeouf Sugars. He stopped his pacing long enough to look out at the streets for sign of John Dugas, the son of the owner of the company. The fog made it difficult to make out the faces of the people who walked by. Not that it would make much of a difference to him. He had never seen John Dugas before, but he had been in America long enough to recognize that the people here displayed their status by the clothes they wore. Naveen was certain that, being the son of a rich candy maker, John Dugas would arrive in a suit and a tie, and possibly a top hat. If the average person were to look at Naveen in any given day, they would probably think he had grown up a pauper. He'd worn his best pair of pants, but he favored comfort over formality. Stuffy attire made him itchy, and he only wore it when absolutely necessary. He stopped pacing as panic seized him. Maybe more formal dress was necessary, for a day like today. Maybe Dugas would take one look at him and think he wasn't serious enough to go into business with him. What did Mr. LaBeouf always tell him? He had to look the part of a businessman if he wanted to succeed in business. Did he have time to run home and change into something more conventional? Naveen took off for the porch steps, but stopped at the sight of a young man wearing brown slacks and a sweater vest, not much different from the one Naveen wore. "Mr. Dugas?" he asked. "Yes. Are you Naveen?" He tipped the bill of his derby hat. "Pleasure to meet you." John Dugas was about his age, with a cheeky smile that Naveen could make out even through the fog. Naveen suddenly felt foolish for being so worried. He and this man would get along just fine. They talked for 2 hours over cups of coffee and tea biscuits. Naveen had strategically chosen a cafe that used LaBeouf Sugars in all their desserts. But it soon became apparent that Dugas could not be easily sweet-talked into a deal. "I have to warn you," the man said as he stirred another teaspoon of sugar into his café au lait. "Miss LaBeouf Sugars has some stiff competition. This area is full of sugar mills that have been vying for our company for years. What makes you think LaBeouf is the one for us?" "Because none of these other mills are bigger or more successful than LaBeouf's," Naveen stated with certainty. Dugas nodded. "True, but there are logical issues as well. Dugas Candy Company is headquartered across Lake Parchulian. Will LaBeouf made that extra inconvenience worth our while?" "We will," Naveen assured him, although he had no idea what it would entail to deliver the product across the vast lake. It didn't matter. If he landed this contract for LaBeouf's, he would do whatever it took to make sure it was a success. Not only did he want this for himself, but after his recent interaction with Tiana, Naveen had a burning need to show her that he, too, could prosper. Seeing how hard she worked to make her restaurant a success made him want to do the same for his job. "I can personally guarantee that no other sugar mill will provide the same service as LaBeouf's," Naveen continued. "Nor will anyone else provide a superior product with LaBeouf's. You get the best." Naveen wasn't sure how John Dugas could turn down such a fabulous sales pitch. "You drive a hard bargain, but I have one more question," Dugas said. "How do you know we were in the market for a new supplier? We just got rid of our previous one a couple of days ago." Naveen leaned in closer and smiled. "It's my job to stay on top of such things, and if you go with LaBeouf Sugars, we will bring that same diligence." By the time Naveen walked out of the cafe, he felt so light he practically floated down the steps. It wasn't a sure thing. John Dugas was much too savvy a businessman to show his hand, but it was close. Naveen could feel it. And he could be the one to make it happen. Possibly. Maybe. Right? He cursed that little nugget of doubt, but after being a screw-up for so long, how could he be certain that this time would be different? Dugas could very well be meeting with another sugar supplier that very minute, having the same friendly conversation. Naveen returned to the sugar mill and went on his daily tour of the factory floor. He spotted Randy Bordeaux coming out of the boiler room. "Hey, Randy," Naveen called. He looped an arm over the man's shoulder. "Thanks for that inside information about Dugas's." Even though he could barely hear his own thoughts above the noisy industrial equipment, Naveen still leaned in close so that no one would overhear. This is only between me and you, my friend, but LaBeouf Sugars may be their next supplier. Pretty good, eh? Oh, yeah? Randy asked. Was it the new cane seeds we're using that did it for him? That ribbon cane produces such much sweeter juice. Naveen frowned. I didn't think to tell him about that. Naveen cursed under his breath. Don't beat yourself up, boss. I don't think it'll make a difference. But it could. Competition was fierce. Dugas had said so himself. Any leg up Naveen could give LaBeouf Sugars would be a good thing. Naveen looked at Randy's soot-covered face with the same curiosity he'd felt every time he chatted with the man. I should have brought you along to my meeting, Naveen said. Your mind is sharp, Randy. How did you end up working on the shop floor? He immediately held up his hands. Not that there's anything wrong with that. You guys do incredible work down here. I just wondered why you don't try your hands at sales. I think you would do a good job. Randy shrugged. I came from poor folks on the bayou. Folks like me don't get to wear them fancy sweaters to work. Another shrug. That's just how it is. Naveen watched him as he walked back toward the boiler room. He wasn't so clueless as to not recognize what it meant to be born into privilege, but he had never thought about those who were held back simply by the chance of their birth. What would he have done with his life had he not been the son of the king and queen of Maldonia? Would he have had the fortitude to work at LaBeouf's? What was he without the royal blood that ran through his veins? Naveen's head was buzzing as he climbed the stairs up to his office. He was so distracted that he almost missed the fine linen envelope on his desk. His pulse quickened as he picked it up and turned it over. Naveen sucked in a swift breath. The royal crest of Maldonia was branded into the seal of gold wax. He quickly loosened the seal and pulled out the letter. Our dearest Naveen, it has been a year since you embarked on your journey to North America. Your mother and I now see that we were harsh in your initial decision to cut you off from your rightful inheritance. Please accept this correspondence as an apology and an invitation to return to your home in Maldonia. We have already prepared the southeast wing of the palace to serve as your residence. This comes with a slate of servants to tend to your needs and a healthy stipend to cover your expenses. I accept your response to your invitation within the next 2 weeks. In congruence with your mother, the queen, your father, the king of Maldonia. Naveen stared at his father's bold handwriting so long that the letters began to swim on the page. Home. They wanted him to come home. He would have servants, a luxurious place to lay his head. Money. He would have all the money he could possibly spend and more. Why did it suddenly feel as if he had eaten too many biscuits at the cafe? Perhaps because as easily as he could think of all that he would gain by returning home, it was just as easy to consider all he would lose. Like the friends he made here in America. Like the satisfaction he experienced after an honest day's work. The fulfillment that came early with knowing he was earning his own way. Like the chance to get to know Tiana better. He was meeting Charlotte at Tiana's place tonight for her big celebration to ring in the Mardi Gras season. He felt a lurch of excitement by knowing he would get the chance to see her soon. Who knew? Maybe this time she wouldn't run away from him. But that would all be irrelevant if he returned home. Naveen pressed a fist to his stomach and slumped into his chair. He brought his elbows up onto the desk and cradled his head in his hands. The decision his father had put before him felt like an anchor to the gut. Would it make him foolish to turn down their invitation to return to the life he'd known back in Maldonia? Or would it make him a failure to accept it?